Narottama Dasa Thakura, he lived a long life. All of the 6 Goswamis, they had left this planet. His dearmost friend, Srinivasacharya, had left the planet. His very, very confidential associate, Ramachandra Kaviraj, he also left the planet. And Narottama Dasa Thakura, who wrote that beautiful song, Jayanilo Premadana, he was just always in lamentation and separation from the Vaishnavas, but simultaneously always experiencing the greatest joy. But he was constantly under attack by the caste Brahmins, because he was from the Kayasta community, very wealthy landowners, but considered of the Shudra class. And he had so many thousands of disciples, and many of them were very, very highly qualified Brahmins. One of them, for instance, Ganga Narayan Chakravarti. He was a very learned scholar and coming from a very stalwart Brahmin family. And Ramachandra Kaviraj was also very, very high birth, very highly recognized person. And they were the obedient, humble servants surrendered to Narottama Das. So when Narottama was very, very old, and he saw that it was time for him to wrap up his earthly Leela, one day he asked his disciples to take him to the river Ganges. In the Narottam Vilas by Narahari, this story is explained. So he went to the Ganga, and he told his disciples to build a funeral pyre for him. So they took the wood and they stacked it and made all the arrangements, decorated it very nicely, a fitting funeral pyre for their guru. And while they were doing it, their hearts were breaking in pain, they were shedding tears, but they had to follow the order of their guru. And then Narottam just sat quietly and went into trance for 3 days. Did not say a word, and his disciples just sat and watched. And after 3 days, all of his life symptoms stopped. He left his body. So at that time, they lifted his body, they put it on the funeral pyre. They began to have their services, the last rites for their Guru Maharaj. And then the caste Brahmins, they heard of this and they came, and they started blaspheming terribly. This guru of yours, so-called guru, Shudra, he has finally met his befitting end. He's dead. And he's offended the whole Brahmin class. He's offended the Shastra. And you are highly born Brahmins, and you have disgraced the name and honor of your caste by accepting a Shudra for a guru, being a servant of such a person. And they were just blaspheming terribly. So Ganga Narayan, he couldn't tolerate hearing his guru, because usually at the last day, when the last eulogies, everyone speaks nicely. In the Jewish tradition, it is said that at a person's funeral, when people speak about him during the funeral ceremony, that the soul hears that and always remembers what the people have said. So that's, throughout all religions, there's always that ceremony where everyone speaks their heartfelt appreciations of a person before his body is either buried or burned. So this was the last words being heard. So Ganga Narayan began to weep. He couldn't tolerate that these people were so offensive, and he prayed to Narottam, please, please do something to change their hearts. This is terrible. So right at that time, Narottam, he sat up, his eyes opened, and when he did this, by the grace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his body became so effulgent that light just started going in all directions around him. He was brilliant. And also a beautiful golden Brahmin thread appeared on his body. And when the Brahmins saw this, they understood that this person is certainly divinely empowered by God. And the Brahmins themselves came and worshipped his feet. And Narottam, with such forgiving compassion, he embraced them all and initiated them in Harinam. And then Narottam just walked away and went to a secluded place where he just did his Nam Bhajan, immersed in inner meditations, Radha Krishna, Leela. And several months later, he again asked his disciples to bring him to the Ganges. So they brought him to the Ganges, and then he went into the Ganges to take bath. He says, you also come in with me. So they came in with him. And he said, now I want you to take the water with your hands and pour it on my body. So they took the water and started pouring it on his body. And as they were doing that, they saw his skin turn white. And it started to melt. And they kept doing it. And his body, as it was being touched by the water of the Ganges, his body was turning into milk and just merging into the Ganges. And their guru was getting smaller and smaller and smaller, littler and littler and littler. And they couldn't stop because their guru ordered them. This was his will. So as they were pouring water on his body was turning to milk and merging into the Ganges. But even more than his body, their own tears were just flowing like anything, merging into his body, into the Ganges. So there was just milk and tears just going on and on and on as an offering to Mother Ganga until finally he disappeared. And then the disciples took that milk that was in the Ganges, mixed with the tears and Ganga water, and put it in a big pot and brought it to a place near Keturi where he lived and built a beautiful Samadhi for him. To this day that Samadhi is there. It's called the Dugdha Samadhi, which means the Samadhi of milk.
You were listening to Radhanath Swami on thesacredconnect.com.